Hello everyone, in front of us we have the Ted Williams Model 200 12 gauge pump action shotgun, which was made from 1964 to I believe 1978, and this is what Sears replaced the J.C. Higgins model line with. If you remember, our J.C. Higgins Model 20 was made by High Standard, and much in the same vein, this Ted Williams Model 200 is made by Winchester. It's basically a Winchester Model 1200 with the exception of the buttstock, barrel, and bolt head do not interchange, and that's the difference between the J.C. Higgins and the Model 200 that we have here. This has a rotating bolt head. Here's your pump release right here, cross bolt safety. Oh, and there is your rotating bolt head. So this particular one has a jeweled bolt, some nice checkering, pressed checkering it appears, back bead, front bead, and a 6-position adjustable choke. One of my friends recently, well, one of my friend's sons recently inherited this, and he's been gracious enough to let me do a video on it. So let's go ahead and start pulling it apart and see how it works. First things first, we're gonna go ahead and take the barrel off. I'm gonna knock some stuff on the floor at the same time. First thing we do is take the magazine tube cap off. Now, unlike a lot of other shotguns where you do this and the spring comes shooting out, the spring comes shooting out because we have a retainer cap, which just for you guys, I will go ahead and pull off, even though I don't really want to. Well, I mean, I do, but I don't, because it is kind of a pain to get back into place. Now, as you can see, it's just a split cupped ring on the end of the recoil spring. Or the magazine spring, not recoil spring. I'm just going to use a screwdriver to gently pull it up. Gently. Gently. Try to move my fingers out to the way. There we go. Hey, look at that. I didn't even hit the camera with the spring. Then let the spring come out. Then you have your magazine follower right there. Set that stuff all off to the side. There's your barrel. Go ahead, and we have a single pin that holds our trigger assembly in place. Go ahead and pop that out. You will need some punches and a screwdriver to disassemble this, so just set it right here. Now, you don't necessarily have to use a punch if it pushes through, but when I was doing this earlier, it did not want to push through. So there we go. Pins push through, pull the pin out, and then trigger assembly just swings up out of the way. Now this is something that I feel like is an advantage of the Ted Williams Model 200 over the J.C. Higgins. This is a much more robust trigger assembly than that has. In fact, on the J.C. Higgins, it has two little aluminum protrusions right here that fit into the receiver. And on our J.C. Higgins that we have, they have broken off. That's why I haven't shot it or done any videos with it recently, because I have to repair that. And this seems to be a much more robust design. I don't know if that's why they changed it, but could be. Now we've got our trigger assembly out. We need to take our bolt out. And the first thing we need to do is take this screw out. Now you want to be careful with this because this plate holds the firing pin in place. So if you're not careful, it will shoot the firing pin and spring out of the back, which isn't necessarily that bad when it's inside the receiver, but trust me, it's not a lot of fun to go and find those pieces. Maybe I've had to do that. There we have our screw. It's a little shouldered screw. It's got a little bit of Loctite on it. Set that off to the side. And now, should be able to pull our pump off the front. Again, keep your finger on that plate as you pull it out. There you go. And it's out. Notice how I'm still holding this here, mostly because I do not want this shooting out. Okay, now that we've gotten it out, oh, if we can get it to focus, there we go. You can see it's got a little bit of an L there that holds the back of the firing pin in place. So take that out, I'm gonna push the firing pin in, pull the plate off, and then gently release tension off the firing pin. That way it doesn't go shooting across the room with the spring. Now this has a rotating bolt head. Most people are probably familiar with the rotating bolt head, which is retained by this pin right here. Now behind this pin, we have a very powerful spring that is what acts on our extractor. So we want to make sure we get this into place, and when we push this through, this spring will want to shoot out. So you want to be very careful about that. Go ahead and grab our punch. You want to line up that pin from the top, and see if I can get in focus here. Now as I move the bolt head back and forth, you can see where that pin is right underneath that hole. So go ahead and take your punch and your block. Set your bolt in there, and then gently drive that out. Now what I do, or what I've done, in order to finish taking this out, is I will flip the bolt with the bolt head up, and then just push the pin the rest of the way through. And as you can hear there, the very powerful spring and washer are now engaged with the punch. Now I'm going to pull the punch out. There we go. And there's your extractor. Take a look at that. There you go. There's your spring. There's your washer. And there's your bolt head. Pretty cool. Rotating bolt and all. Your extractor just slides right back into, well, not quite that deep, but right back into that slot. And then it slides in here. Here's our pin. Now when you go to put this back in, you want to make sure the long end is towards the bottom. That is what rides in this groove. And now that I've taken it all apart, I'm going to put it back together, which is a lot harder than taking it apart. You know, that seems to be a running theme with a lot of stuff. It's harder to take apart than put back together. First thing I'm going to do is move that bolt. I'm going to slide the spring back in place. There we go. Now, still a little out of focus. I want you to be able to see well. So there we go. Slide that in place. And then, well, here we have a problem. The extractor was not in place, so the spring didn't catch where it's supposed to. Easy enough. Put that back in there. Hold your finger like that so that the extractor stays where it's supposed to. And then you might need to push that down in there, make sure it's on there good. There we go. Now you can see it is engaged on there correctly. So now we've gotten that done. We're going to take our washer, acts on the back of the spring, drop it down in there. It's not quite in there flat, so I'll use a punch to get it nice and flat in there. Now we'll go ahead and slide this back into the bolt body, like so. And that should hold the extractor in place, and the washer falls out of the back. And now here is where things get complicated. And what I will do is I am going to grab the block like so, and take the extractor and put it in this hole right here, like that. Now you can use a lot of different things to do this, but this is one of the reasons why these blocks, these gunsmithing blocks, are really nice. They give you plenty of places to put things like that, so you don't have to worry about breaking them off. Now I'm going to take and push. I'm going to do my best to show you what I'm going to do, but I will have to have this on the table in order to push it down with enough pressure. But you should be able to see. I'm going to use this nylon punch to push this down to where that washer is past where I need to put the pin in. And then once it gets past that point, I will slide the pin in. So wish me luck, as like I said, this is not the most fun thing to do. You want to make sure that you have your hole lined up as your firing pin does travel through this hole. So it needs to be straight in the body. Actually gonna flip this over so I can make sure I have a little bit of a lip on that washer. Now pushing it down, which I'm going to have to use more force than that. Now, hold on. Yeah. There we go. Okay, now I've gotten it down. I'm going to take our pin, put it in, then I'll let the punch go. And now, as you can see, the pin has just made it in there and is holding the washer back. And you can kind of tell right here that the hole is lined up. It's a little difficult to see, but it is lined up. So now, go ahead and set it back down in our block, and we'll tap it in place with our nylon headed hammer, just to where it's flush, like so. There we go. Now we're flush. It's in there, moves. Make sure our firing pin goes through. Maybe, if I can get, there we go. Yep, perfect. Firing pin slides through the bolt, all the way through, works as it should. So now, take our firing pin spring, put it back in the bolt, like that. Although I am not going to push it in there, put the plate on, and you'll see why in a moment. Before we go any further, I'm going to put the, yes, I forgot about that. You have this spring steel bar that goes on the side of the receiver, and it retains everything. Well, not everything, it doesn't retain everything, but it puts pressure on the side of the bolt, and so on. Go ahead and slide our magazine follower down in. Boop. We'll go ahead and slide our spring back in. And this is where that cap becomes really useful. I mean, it's useful in the fact that if you want to change your barrel, you don't have to worry about your spring shooting out. Although, this definitely wants to shoot off the edge of the table. There we go. Take our cap. I should put the cap on the end of the spring. Oh God. There we go. Exactly how you want to do it. Okay. Bear with me. There we go. Okay, now now that you've got the cap in place, or the retainer in place, you can just slide it down into the end of the tube. It's a friction fit. You don't have to push it down in there all the way, just enough to hold the spring in place. And this is where this comes in really handy, because just bash the camera around a little bit. You cannot put this spring and this retainer plate back in. Well, you can put the retainer plate back in. In fact, you have to put the retainer plate back in because that's what rides on the action rails there, so, or the slide rails. So it does have to go back in, but you can't put that screw back in until it's in the receiver. At least I hadn't figured out a way to do that. If there is a way to do it, other than that, I would like to know. So here's what we will do. Well, first off, we'll go ahead and widen this back out a tad. Go ahead and slide our pump assembly back on. And it just fits right in there. Pretty simple. Like any other pump shotgun. Then go ahead and slide that forward a bit so we can get our bolt set down into the grooves that it needs to sit into. Go ahead and take our bolt, push it in, or push a firing pin and push it in. Slide the plate in place, and then make sure that you hold this very tightly. Grab your pump, make sure it's in the grooves. Set your bolt down on top of it, get it in place. As we have it there, it's in place. Slide your pump back. As you're doing that, again, make sure you hold that plate in place. Now that we've gotten that there, before I do anything else, I'm going to put this screw back in, because I do not want that firing pin shooting out of the back. This is a very narrow slotted head on this flathead screw, so make sure that you are using an appropriate sized flathead screwdriver so you don't tear it up. There we go. It's in there tight. Slides back and forth just fine now. Now that's done, we can reinstall the trigger assembly. Oh, no we can't. I almost forgot something very important. Our spring steel retaining bar. I should have looked up again what that was called, but I did not. So, it goes in, if I can find it, zoom us back out a bit. Goes into this groove right here on the left-hand side of the bolt. What you do, take that, oh, you can't see what I'm doing, slide it right into that groove along the side of the receiver, like so. If you look, you can see it's down in there now. Maybe, there we go. And there is a pin right there that the slot and that bar has to interact with. So what you want to do is come up to the front like this and push the bar all the way in. There we go. That's all the way to the back of the receiver. Then take a flathead screwdriver, go right underneath, there's a little bump right here. Just get underneath there. There you go. And it's on. It's a little hard to see, as it's a little dark in there. Let's get some light. There we go. So that's back in place. Now we can put our trigger assembly back where it goes. Just push in the sides. They lock right into a couple little spots right there at the front. You go ahead and put your pin back in. There we go. Pin's back in. And then we can reinstall our barrel, probably with the breech towards the receiver opposed to the muzzle. There we go. Barrel is installed. As you can see, little spring clip clips into the back of the barrel. Then you just put your magazine cap back on. And move some of these things out of my way. You are now ready to run. So the only thing left to do with this is take it out to the range and see how it shoots. Now I don't think this is going to be particularly different than any other pump shotgun, wide zoom, any other pump shotgun that I've ever used, but it does seem to be pretty smooth. I really like the rotating bolt head, and I am a fan of the adjustable choke, although I think the adjustable choke on the JC Higgins is a little cooler, but that's for you guys to decide. So let's go ahead and take it out to the range, see how it shoots, and well, hopefully it does shoot. Okay, now we're out here at the range with our Ted Williams Model 200. I realized that on the table video I did not get an up close of the actual Ted Williams branding there on the barrel, so thought I'd get that now. But we'll go ahead and run some bird shot, buckshot at some water jugs. That'll probably be about it. Just make sure it functions now after I've taken it apart and put it back together. That's always a good thing to do. So let's go ahead and give it some shots. Okay, so now we're gonna fire 2 rounds of bird shot, 2 rounds of buckshot with the choke all the way open at our 4 close jugs. Then I'll take the choke, turn it all the way to as tight as it'll go, and we'll fire 4 shots, again, 2 a bird shot, 2 a buckshot at our further targets. So, let's go. Okay. That's all the way tight. Okay, now that we're done shooting our Ted Williams Model 200, if you're into baseball, you'll know who Ted Williams was. I can say that, like many of the department store shotguns, it is a quality firearm. It's a little stiffer than the J.C. Higgins Model 20, but seems robust. Recoil was nice, and it was good to shoot. So if you find one, say used, it's a good price, I would definitely pick it up. Thanks for watching.